Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today's masterclass on product road mapping with Rama Dawod. Rama is a results-driven product manager with over 9 years in establishing product strategies, building roadmaps, and accelerating product innovation to support broader business goals. Championing product management, successfully launching technical products, and facilitating continuous improvement by integrating user testing, design, technical implementation, and quality testing into processes. So thank you, Rama, for joining us today, and you can go ahead.
Thank you, Nadine. Well, thank you again for giving me the opportunity to work with yet another core cohort. Last year was amazing. I'm really looking forward to this year. I took a quick look at the profiles of the startups that were shared, and a lot of it was very interesting. Before I start, and I'll mention this again at the end, if you ever need any support beyond today's class or you have any questions, please feel free to reach out at any time. We'd love to support you, me personally, and Start Labs, the entity I work with as well. Today, we're going to talk about product road mapping. So essentially, I added this quote here, and I'm not a very big fan of using quotes in general, but I found that it was very relevant. Which is planning is bringing the future into the present so that you can do something about it now. And anyone who has struggled with product development or developed a product knows how important this is. The earlier you can catch onto things or figure them out, the earlier you can resolve them, the less impact it has later on. So I'm going to take you through a high-level overview of what we're going to cover today. The main part of this masterclass is to focus on the product road mapping and the prioritization of features. However, I'd like to start by quickly covering strategic planning as a high-level coverage of how strategic planning flows into product road mapping so that we can understand how we get to the road mapping part. And a bit about product portfolio planning, because both of those activities have to take place before we go into the actual product roadmap planning. After that, we'll deep dive a bit in this class into the stakeholder engagement and how to involve and manage the product stakeholders in the road mapping process, because they're a huge part of this. And then we'll go into the user story mapping and how to translate the customer needs into actionable tasks and features. After that, we'll talk about those features, those tasks, and how to prioritize them and how to decide what to build when and why to do so. And then we'll cover quickly the next steps after that, which is the release planning, but that's a huge topic on its own, so it should be covered separately. So the important things to look at when creating a product roadmap is defining why it's important, how the user experience is a key differentiator and key aspect in this process. We will then go over a user story map case study called PharmaTech. It's just like an imaginary company, but we're going to cover a few concepts through that company. And then how to define the product scope and create products that people love. So essentially, the top part of this funnel of the product planning process is starting with this strategy. I'm sure you guys covered areas related to strategy, but the reason why we start here is because everything we do in the product road mapping process, in the product development process, comes back to the strategy. We cannot build features that are not aligned with our strategy. We cannot come up with concepts that are not aligned with our strategy. So it's very important to clearly define what the strategy is before we start applying these methods or start looking into product development. Otherwise, it will be messy, and then you'll find all of a sudden that you're lost, you're building things that don't make sense. So this happens a lot with startups, by the way, and I'm not mentioning it as a side topic, but we see this with a lot of startups. The strategy is not well defined. They're not sure where they're going, which is fine sometimes because, you know, a startup has a lot of ambiguity. However, when it comes to actually building the product and developing it, this becomes very risky because that's where most of the cost takes place. So if you start spending money and money that you really need on features and concepts that are not aligned with your strategy, then that money is lost and that time is lost, and you'll find that you're just swayed from your original path. When we look at these 6 steps, which is going from strategy to the product portfolio, and then the product development process, which includes road mapping, the release, the sprint, and the daily. There's 2 ways to look at it. So the top-down approach, which is the PO or the CEO, usually those 2 roles are played by the same person in a startup. They look at it from top to bottom. So they go from strategy to daily, which is what we're doing. The rest of the team looks at it from a different perspective. They look at it in terms of completing tasks and finishing what they have to do. So it's always important that the people making the decisions are taking a top-down approach, while the people that are executing or actually doing the work can look at it from a different angle, which is getting the things done on a daily basis. So for product strategy planning, it's important to have the product vision defined, knowing where you're going, what it is that you want to achieve, what is the purpose, where do you see yourself in 10 years, what is the purpose of building this startup, building this company, what is the customer value, and having a deep and empathetic understanding of who your customers are and what jobs they want to do, understanding their pains, their gains, etc., because that all goes into part of the strategic planning. And the value proposition, which is what is your business promising to give to those customers or users. And all of that can funnel into the business model canvas. Again, I'm not going to go into the details of those. I'm sure you guys have gone over strategy before. I just want to make sure that you understand how we get to where we are. So we start with the high-level product vision, and then take the user into consideration. If it's a product that we're maintaining, usually we take user feedback into consideration. If we're developing the product from scratch, we look at stakeholders, which is what we're going to do in today's session. And then we define or redefine the product goals, build and review the roadmap, and then check in with the vision to see if we're on track. And this activity has to take place continuously. Usually it's a yearly event. Some people do it more often, but if we don't have this yearly planning going on to understand where we are and where we're going in terms of features and what to develop, we could also lose track of where we're going. In terms of the portfolio planning, which is the step that comes after strategy, but before product road mapping. So portfolio management, basically a product portfolio management is what fuels the strategy itself. It's something that's not very important for startups. So I'm just going to go over it really briefly, but it's important that you understand the concept. So product portfolio management is an approach to managing the balance of investments in a company's product initiatives. Okay, so the goal of this is to increase market share. And it's usually determined by budget, strategic alignment, and risk tolerance. So what does a product portfolio entail? Usually there's 3 types of products that a company can have: a core product, adjacent product, and transformational product. So the core products are the products with the highest market share value, which is sold to your existing customers. Basically, it's your bread and butter. Okay, and the highest resource allocation is usually given to that. So for example, for Coca-Cola, that would be the actual Coke drink. Okay, and then there's adjacent products, which are conceptually the same as before, but they serve a market that is new. So either a new vertical or a new geographical location, something that is beyond the core, but still serves into the core. And then there's the transformational products, which are innovations. So in Coca-Cola's case, it would be partnering up with a coffee house to build a cold brew coffee. In cases of startups, usually 100% of the portfolio is transformational. And this is where a lot of the changes come, because what you're creating is there to disrupt, to make something different. It's not a well-established company that has its core product. As the company moves from being a startup and grows, this product portfolio changes in terms of weight and in terms of how the products are defined within the portfolio itself. So I just wanted to go briefly over strategy and portfolio, but now we're going to deep dive into the important stuff, which is the product planning. So the whole purpose of product planning is to determine which features you need to build and when. And it basically bridges the areas of the portfolio and the release. The release means getting your features actually done, built by a technical team. In our case, we're talking about technology firms or tech-enabled firms. So I'm talking like, I'm going to cover that scope only. So which features you need to build and when. And this is very important because determining this correctly from day one will save you money, and it will save you time, and it will allow you to release features that your customers want first before experimenting with things that are not there. If we look at the Standards Group, they shared some search results on usage of features that were released in technology products. So they found that 50% of features are hardly ever used, and only 20% of the features are often used. So when these technology firms, these technology products that we're using constantly are releasing features, only 20% of these features are often used. And a firm that is doing its job in terms of product planning, product development, and task prioritization, try to reduce the number of features that are not used and increase the numbers of the features that are used by figuring out what their customers want. So why is this the case? Why is it that we build a lot of features that our customers don't end up using, our users don't end up using? It could be related to problems with the vision. It could be related to identifying their own target market. It could be a value proposition design defect. So we think that we are adding value to our customers by building this feature when we're not. And this all goes down to the prioritization of the product being spot on or not. Which again brings us back to the strategic planning. The more we do this, the more we're aligned with this, the less likely we are to make wrong decisions. You'll always make wrong decisions when it comes to products. You will never get the features 100% correct, but you can reduce the errors that happen at that stage. So this takes us to the agile planning, so product planning, release planning, sprint planning, and backlog items. And these are the steps we take to deliver actual features to the market. We start with planning the product, and then how are we going to release it? What steps are we going to take? What comes in first? And then the sprint planning and backlog items are the tools that allow us to get these features shipped to our users. So in this session, we're going to discuss a case called Pharmatech. So Pharmatech's slogan is making medicine accessible for everyone, anytime, anywhere. Pharmatech is a mobile application that connects pharmacies and customers together. Their product vision is to be the leading trusted platform that makes medicine accessible for everyone, anytime, anywhere. Okay, so basically, just to give you a quick brief, they have two mobile applications. One is for the pharmacies, one is for the patients, and patients can order their medication from the pharmacy and get it delivered to their house. This is a fictional company. We're just going to use it as an example to apply this to the case. So the first step to understanding how we're going to get into our product development planning, we would look at who's going to use our product, defining who's going to use it. In our case, it would be pharmacists, patients, patient family members, hospitals, and clinics. What needs will our product address? So in this case, there's a lot, of course, but in this case, we could highlight instant access to healthcare advice, medication received by patients, anywhere, anytime. The value, what value will a product bring, which is enhance the quality of healthcare reach and increase patient health awareness, and the most critical attributes of the product. So in this case, it's trust and efficiency, and those will, of course, vary between one product and the other. But having a clear definition of these things is essential to start the product planning activity. So in order to go through the product planning activity, we need to first start by defining who the stakeholders are for our business or our startup. So the definition of a stakeholder is anyone who has interest in the product and its success. So it could be the user, it could be an investor, it could be management, it could be internal people from internal departments. It's basically anyone that is related to the product in any way. Anyone who can influence product decisions, and anyone who is impacted directly or indirectly by the product. All these people are considered stakeholders when it comes to developing our product. So for Pharmatech, who are the stakeholders? The healthcare providers, the healthcare receivers, and people from pharma tech, executives, product managers, product owners, head of departments, etc. Once we've defined who our stakeholders are, and once we have a list of all these people, the purpose of the product planning activity is to bring all these people together in one room and start discussing how this product is going to be developed. And this is very challenging because a lot of these people are busy and are not available, but the product owner is responsible to make sure that every stakeholder in the business has a voice, is involved, and is able to identify the things that are most important to the product. And you'll see in a few slides why this is very important. So for the product planning activity, what's crucial is to get all these stakeholders together, create a space for the meeting, whether it's a virtual space or a physical space, it doesn't matter, as long as everyone's available at the same time in the space. And creating a board with post-its on it, and to start engaging in the meeting with all invitees. So the absence of core stakeholders will have a high impact on the quality of the roadmap results. If one of the stakeholders is not giving their feedback during this process, then that feedback might come at a later stage after we started the investment, after we started the work, and that will cause, issues later on, because when you reach that point, you've invested a lot, and then you're going to have to make changes because that person was not engaged from day one, or you're going to face hurdles because that person was not engaged from day one, and you might have to sway from your current path, which we don't want to do. So when it comes to product road mapping, the first step in the product road mapping is understanding the user experience. So this is crucial. Understanding what your user experience is and defining your customer journey is crucial for determining what features you want to ship and how you're going to ship them. And in order to do that, there has to be a clear understanding of user personas, user jobs, user pains and gains. So what is it the user wants to do on our platform? What are the problems that our users face? What are their pains? How can we solve them? And how can they gain from the product that we are delivering, which is the value proposition. So to discuss prioritizing and deciding which features to build first, I'd like to take like a quick survey and ask you guys about prioritizing tasks. If you can just quickly write on the chat an answer, you can just write the number. So I find the task of prioritizing which feature to build first very easy, somewhat difficult, or very difficult. So I just would like to get like a quick read of everyone here. 5. Okay, thank you, Caroline. Safe 1, thank you. Gonna give people a few more minutes to answer. Thank you, Saed. Thank you, Saya. Thank you, Ghassan. 4. Okay. Okay. Type. I'd like us to like engage a little bit here and talk about why we find this very easy or very hard. So Saif, if you don't mind, I'd like to start with you since you find prioritization very easy. Can you tell us a bit more about how you prioritize and how you determine what features to ship first? Mic does not work. Type. Do you mind if you write a quick a couple of lines? Yes, please. That would be great. Let's Saif a minute. We can move and come back to Saif once he's done. Take your time writing your notes. And I'd like to go to the people who said 5 as well and hear about the difficulties that they face. So I think, Caroline, you said 5. Would you like to share a bit on what areas you struggle with in terms of prioritizing what features to build?
Yeah, I did. I'm not on the technical side of the business, but you want to have the perfect product where you have your clients, your customers coming in and having a smooth experience. So that's why you have everything as a priority, and you need to have everything done as soon as possible, which is not the case for the tech people. So you need to prioritize things, and which is really hard for me, especially most of the time.
It's hard to prioritize the pains or the features.
The features, hence the pains. Yeah.
Okay, and why did you connect prioritizing the features with your technical background? I'm very curious.
Because they always say you don't have the technical background, you're not on the tech side. You need to think differently in order to prioritize things for technically how we implement it. So that's why for me, I see most of the things are priority. So this is not the case for the tech team.
Okay, this is a very interesting point. Thank you, Caroline. I'd like to talk a bit about that. Who decides what's important? Which team decides what is important? Who makes this decision? Because this is crucial. Are we building a product for people, or are we building a product for tech? This is something that we find a lot of people struggle with. I'm a PM with a background in finance and business, and I went into technology, and I know your struggle. And when I first started, I used to get a lot of that. Now I don't accept it. It doesn't matter what the tech team thinks unless they come back and tell me this is going to cost you $1 million. I don't think they are in a position to prioritize that. They're in a position to give information on how it will be built, how much it will cost, how much it will take. But in terms of determining what is essential and what is priority, this has nothing to do with the technical team, and it shouldn't. Again, unless it comes down to cost. And the only thing they can do is come back and tell you, okay, this is how we can do it, this is how much it's going to cost, and then you're going to have to weigh that out. But I don't see why the technical team does not get involved in the business. They don't talk to the users, they don't study the markets, they don't look at the competition. The technical teams actually know about the business through the PM, through the person leading, the PM, the CEO, the GM, whoever is leading the business, whoever is communicating with the tech team in terms of the business. So I don't think we should, we'll expand on this a bit more, but Said, I'd like to hear from you. You raised your hand.
Yeah, just a very quick point regarding the tech involvement in deciding the priorities. I think sometimes if the features, they are built on top of each other, so and it is important to have certain features before building another more advanced one. Therefore, the saying of the tech team is very important. Yes. Because you can't build the very advanced tech feature prior to building the basic, which basically allows you to deliver on that. So I believe the involvement of the tech team is necessary there. Additionally, the cost which you have mentioned earlier. So I think these are two things which are very important. But just like in your point regarding who decides the priority when it comes to the features being released, I believe, as you mentioned, the project manager is the person who's going to be involved in that mainly, since they understand what user or client wants and understand the tech capabilities and the budgets which is available. Then he's facilitating or she's facilitating the interaction between the two sides. So making sure that the process is smooth and easy and deliverable as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really like that. Thank you, because this highlights the point that the tech team's expertise comes to how to build things, not whether we should do them or not. So if you say, I want to release this feature to customers, either because the competition did it or because you want to, you need to do it for whatever business reason there is, because your customers are demanding it, because there's a requirement in the market for this and all of that, then it comes down to the tech team to figure out how to do it efficiently, how to do it quickly. They can give recommendations on how to reduce cost, or they can give suggestions on how to make this, shipping part of the feature that could satisfy the business need. They could, of course, get involved in this, and it's important that the dev team is involved for this, for morale and because of their technical expertise. But technical team member or a developer should not have a say in whether a feature should be released to the customers or not, because they do not have access to that information. They do not have access to the business needs, to the client needs. It depends, of course, what kind of product you're building. But they don't. It's not their job to dig deep into the pains of the user. It's not their job to understand the requirement of the market. It's their job to understand and advise on how to build certain things after that requirement has been defined by the product team. So this is why I found it very interesting that Caroline mentioned tech teams, because tech teams sometimes they tend to take over, especially in larger businesses. Like you see them taking over and saying, we can't do this, we can't do this. No, you come back to me with analysis of what it will cost, how much time it will take, and then the business will determine whether this feature is worth it or not. It could be a feature that takes a lot of time but brings in millions of dollars. In that case, we have to do it. We have to prioritize it because it's a quick win, even if it's going to cost us a lot in terms of time and investment. Ghassan, also, I'd like to hear from you about your 5. Why do you face difficulties in this area? Ghassan, can you hear us? Not sure if Ghassan can hear us, but I'd like to go back to Saif's point. So Saif said 1, which is very easy. The feature should focus on the product performance, feasibility, technical support, and maintenance, as well as customer satisfaction. Okay, but let's say you have a limitation on cost, so which is usually the case. You have a limitation on cost and you have a limitation on time. How would you prioritize these features? And maybe it's going to be a bit difficult to have this as a discussion, but I'd like to hear more about your 1, because I find that very interesting. I rarely get a 1 when asked this question. So if you can elaborate a bit more on your point, that would be great, Saif. But I'll get back to it. So I'm seeing a lot of 2s and 1s, I mean, I hope these numbers are correct. I personally find prioritizing features to be one of the most difficult tasks a PM goes through and a business goes through, given restrictions, whether you're a small startup that's restricted by budget, or you're a PM at a major company that is fighting for internal resources. I always found this activity to be very, very difficult to get spot on, because of course, the limitations that come with it. So, Said, is your hand raised? If not, that's not the case, can you please put it down so I know if you raise it again? Thank you. So for prioritization, I'm gonna go over a very simple model that I really like and that I find is useful for startups specifically, because there's a lot of methods and approaches to prioritization of tasks. Some of them take into consideration cost and resources, and some of them don't. But today I'm just going to cover the high-level business aspect of how to prioritize tasks through a product planning session. So basically, the way story mapping works is to understand how we're going to prioritize tasks. We need to look at what it is our customers are trying to do, or our users are trying to do. What is their journey? What are they trying to achieve on our platform? So the purpose of user story mapping is to help teams group their work into iterations. And we'll get into that. How to narrow down to what features to build today, what features to build tomorrow, what features not to build at all, and how to define that. So the major point of the story mapping, or the first step towards doing this, is defining major activities that customer wants to do on your app or on your platform. What are the main things they want to achieve? And from that, we come into a backbone. This backbone represents the customer, the task that the customer can do, or the journey they can go through on your platform. Not every customer will go through the same journey. Sometimes multiple customer profiles will go through different journeys, but essentially having a backbone that is based on a timeline is a good place to start when it comes to story mapping. So in the case of Pharmatech, we have two platforms. Here we're going to discuss the patient platform specifically. So if we look at the patient platform, we can look at the timeline of what the patient can achieve while using our platform or application. So they start by signing up and then browsing product, which is medication. In this case, it could be other pharmacy products. The ability to change their settings, their notifications, etc. Ability to contact the pharmacy, the ability to add things to their shopping cart, the ability to check out with those items, to track their order, and to contact support. So in this case, we established this as the backbone. These are the main areas that the customer has to go through as a user journey. Okay, and by starting here, we can go into building or understanding the needs for each area and the tasks and the features that will go into each of these areas, how to narrow down these areas into specific tasks and features. So the way it works is, and to be honest, guys, I've done this activity with a lot of stakeholders, and I found that at the end, it takes a few hours, sometimes a few days, depending on how big it is. But I found that it actually allows you to get a lot of feedback and a lot of understanding about your product. So imagine bringing all these stakeholders for your business, your investors, your employees, some of your customers or potential customers, and bringing everyone into a room, make it a fun activity, and put this backbone on a board and start adding all the features. Just add post-its under each feature. This looks very organized on my slide. In real life, it's not. But add all the features that fall under the first area. So the onboarding, which is here, I called it the sign-up, the onboarding experience, what goes under? And let everyone engage. What do users want when they onboard? What is important to investors when they onboard? What is important to the marketing department? What is important to the UX department, etc. And start adding all these things under each area of the backbone. So for the sign-up process, users need to register. They need to log in. They need to be able to reset their password. They need to be able to select their app language. They need to accept TNC. And this can go on for each area of the backbone until we have everyone's input added. Doesn't mean that everyone's input will be taken into consideration. Doesn't mean that we will build all of these things, but it's important to put everything from all perspectives onto the board so that we understand what it is that our customers are trying to do. Of course, if you have multiple journeys or if you have multiple applications, you need to do this for every single one. So we had one for patients, we'll have one for pharmacists, etc. Mainly this is not something you do once if you have one journey. So once we have this map, once we have all the things that we want to do listed from all the stakeholders, we can look at the prioritization and how we're going to take these tasks into consideration. Again, to recap, the stakeholders include your users, your future users, your investors, everyone who's involved in your business, right? So you're hearing from everyone. When it comes to prioritization of tasks, there's different methods that you can use. These are the three most famous ones, which is the Moscow method, the Rice scoring method, and the Kano model. Rice scoring and Kano are a bit more complex, and I can discuss them with you beyond this class if you have interest in doing so. But for the purpose of this class, I'm just going to focus on the Moscow method. So what does the Moscow method mean? It's very basic, it's very high level. We define tasks, we put them in 4 categories: the must-haves, the should-haves, the could-haves, and the won't-haves. Okay, so in this case, the must-haves are the vital features that without those, you cannot launch your app. You absolutely cannot launch, and they have to be in your platform or in your application in order to be able to launch it. Or let's say we're talking about a major feature. These are the sub-features that must be developed in order to release this larger feature or this product. And then the should-haves are the ones that better to include features, but won't be a disaster without them, i.e. you can release without these features, but if you have them, they will add a lot of value, and these are higher priority features. The could-haves are the nice-to-haves, so they are features that might add some value to the users, might resolve some of the secondary or tertiary pains, so they're potential tasks, but they're not essential for launch or for success. And then the won't-haves are the features we decide after putting everything on the board that we will not develop for any reason there is. So there's a discussion process that takes place, and then we decide that this is not aligned with our strategy or who we are or with our users, and we eliminate it as a feature. So for the board that I distilled, I created a small color code so that we can define how to do things. And usually when we have deep dives, we ask the teams to actually do this for their own startups, which will allow them to understand the concept or grasp it in a more relevant experience. But here, if we look at the board, we can define the things as must-have, which are the greens. You cannot release this app without registration. You cannot release it without login. In other apps, you could. So it depends on your application. It depends on your feature sets. But we start off by defining what are the most important or the must-haves, what are the should-haves, could-haves, and won't-have. Has anyone worked on something similar before or used a similar methodology to prioritize tasks within their product? Or do you just because I'd like to hear from the people who said it was easy. Do you use something similar, or is it based on a hunch? I'm gonna go back to the messages. Okay. Just let me know which slide. Ghassan, do you have your mic available, or are you also not able to use your mic?
No, I'm here.
Hi, Ghassan.
Hi,
Ghassan, you were one of the people that said 5, I think.
Yeah, it was difficult.
Okay. Which slide would you like me to go back to? This one?
And the previous one, yeah, that's it. I just want to take a screenshot, please. Thank you.
Of course. You can read a lot about the Moscow model as well. The cool thing now is that we have access to a lot of this information. And I really like this model because, again, I come from a business background, not a technical background. When you build very heavy tech products, Moscow is a bit more difficult to implement. You will have to go to models that take cost and deeper PM approaches to assess. But I find from a business/product perspective that this is a very, very useful tool. Has anyone ever seen the Moscow model before or worked on something similar to the Moscow model that had a different name?
I have never, but I was comparing it to our competitors. That's why. I didn't see any competitor using this method, or maybe the platform is working without this model. So I just want to compare something.
But how do you know what your competitor is using in terms of prioritization? How do you know which approaches they're using?
No, I'm just comparing it to our own platform. I was seeing just they're still in product development. Yeah, I was just trying to compare the difference.
Okay, but currently, when you prioritize your tasks, it doesn't have to. We don't have to call it Moscow. Okay, Moscow is just giving it a name and saying في must have, the fee should have, the fee could have. But in reality, هذا الكونسبت intuitive. يعني ممكن يكون حدا بيطبق هذه الكونسبت عنده بدون ما يكون مسميهم هاي الاسامي. This is why I'm بسأل السؤال إنه إذا حدا استخدم هذا الكونسبت قبل، لأنه ممكن في حدا بيطبق الابروتش هذا أو الطريقة هاي by saying إنه okay إحنا we want to eliminate those أو إحنا we want to apply those without actually calling it Moscow. فعشان هيك بسألك غسان، عمرك طبقت إشي زي هيك؟ عمرك أو إشي ب similar approach ولا كيف بتختار؟ يعني أنا اليوم لو بقول لك عندك 30 تاسك وبس تقدر تختار 5، كيف بتختارهم اليوم؟
لا صراحة I didn't use them before, it's a good thing to see. صراحة.
بحب أسمع من الناس اللي حكوا أسهل، سارة وسائد وسيف ما عنده مايك، بس بحب أسمع إنه اليوم هل هذا الابروتش مثلا ممكن تحسه مفيد to add value ليور process؟ هل بتحس إنه it's too basic وبتحتاج more complexity؟
I can go ahead if that's all right. I can maybe add something. So yeah, to be honest, our approach of working at our company, since we're developing a deep tech solution, is to see what the client wants and back engineer it from there. Because we know that our vision is to use artificial intelligence to help healthcare industry, and that can be used in many ways. So whenever being at the sales side, being involved with the sales cycle and just meeting the clients regularly, you can understand what is the pains they have. Obviously, we have few things identified previously and we have developed, but regarding releasing more features and capitalizing on more in specific things which you have released by advancing them and releasing more features on them, that's depending on what the customer wants to see. And that's actually what works. At the moment, we don't have a product manager, but I believe us as co-founders are the product managers, because we are the ones meeting the clients at the same time. We're the ones communicating to technical people. Even actually, we are the technical people, as we are contributing in the technical development. So that's really the way we have done it. To be frank with you, we haven't studied anywhere a certain model for doing that, but we're doing it the same way which I have described to you, and I think it's intuitive. That guarantees that our resources is fully utilized. We don't want to develop anything or release any new feature unless there is a massive need for it. Otherwise, we don't want to just burn our money, because in the startups, you don't have these massive teams where you can make them work on some R&D stuff, unless the clients, they want it and they want to see it as part of what they're buying. Then there is no need for us to go and explore it. I mean, that's really our take from our experience.
So I didn't you're using a B2B product?
B2B, yes.
Yeah. With B2B products, the main stakeholder is the client. It's a bit different than building for customers, and it's also easier to gather feedback. So you don't really rely on user-generated feedback and A/B testing to get information, because you have direct access to the people using the product. But the question is, today you have 100 clients, okay? Each one of those clients wants something. And that's also a challenge that a lot of SaaS companies face, is that they want to open the door for customization or add new features, but their customers come to them. They have 10 clients. Each client wants something completely different. Where do you draw the line? How do you prioritize? You prioritize based on which client is more important? Do you prioritize on which feature works better for your strategy on the long run that you can integrate into your product, sell to other people? فأنا اليوم, let's say 3 clients come to you, and each one of them asks for a feature that requires your full resource. How do you pick which feature to implement?
As you mentioned, it depends on the vision regarding the where do you want to see the product later on. If you gathered enough information which can make you understand the need for the features which you want to develop by the potential future customers, if you think customers in the future will need that product, I guess it's a priority to go ahead and just develop it. And obviously, you're gonna have to upset some some current clients if you can't deliver to them specific features which they want, unless you go ahead and maybe charge them more to deploy some more resources so that you can make them satisfy and maybe do a bespoke solution for them by tweaking a little bit. But that shouldn't be too much. It should be just a little bit more customized. And even that, you should be careful, because you can't satisfy all the customers you have. At the end of the day, you just look at the bulk of the customers who want specific features and then go and serve them. For the other ones who are strategic and high profiles and very important as reference, you try to accommodate what they want. But at the end of the day, if it just it clashes with your future development plan and what the future customers want, then I think you should drop it. Otherwise, you're gonna be consultancy company rather than SaaS.
Yeah, that's true. And that happens to a lot of SaaS companies. Actually, they struggle with that. Cool. Thanks for the perspective, Saeed. Caroline, now that you saw this model, do you feel like this is something that's a fit? Sorry, Anna, I'm trying to remember all the startups, guys. So can you tell me what Fidelity does in a few lines, just so I'm aware of the context?
Yeah, of course. We're a matchmaking platform between consultants and businesses.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, do you feel like this model could be useful in terms of how you apply things? Do you think that it has certain challenges for you? Did you
Yeah, but definitely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. we've been doing it as a table and prioritizing things differently, but not the way not the Moscow model you introduced. So yeah, I think it's very beneficial for us. We might give it a try very soon.
Good, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Ahmed, I'd love to hear from you as well.
Yeah, I have used not the same model, but I think it's the same idea and serving the same purposes as well. But in my type of business, yeah, there's a lot of features, and we were forced to prioritize and neglect some of them. Maybe part of them, they are really potential features, but we postponed them to the second stage, maybe because of the cost of the development also as well.
Good. Does anyone else want to raise or talk a bit about their experience with prioritization and this model before I move on? Because I'd like to hear from everyone. Okay. But for the people that did something similar, did you involve all your stakeholders, or did you do it alone with you or and a couple of other team members and just list what features you want to prioritize? فيعني Caroline, you mentioned you did this. Ahmed, you mentioned you did something similar. Saad was very clear on involving his clients, so we have that point. Did you get other people involved? Did you get users involved? Did you get stakeholders from other areas involved?
No, we didn't get them involved directly. We've been receiving feedback from consultants, from clients. So like we were ourselves recognizing the patterns more or less, and our observations. Yeah.
Okay, so we're relying on user feedback, user generated feedback. Okay, Aman.
Yes, but not directly as a feedback. Maybe we try to get some information through our meetings, our discussions, maybe to prioritize which features we have to start with and what features we can just postpone.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Okay, we can, I think, move forward. I think I went back a few slides. And I find the Moscow model I find it to be a very easy, high-level tool to do things, at least to organize your thoughts and to get everyone involved. Of course, there's a lot of cleanup that happens after that, and a lot more challenges that come once they get into the technical area. But just to have like a quick understanding of what we want to do, especially if you're building an MVP. If you're already established and you're in the market, you apply this to features. But if you look at this chart here, let me just minimize. The must-haves usually when you're developing a new product fall into the MVP release. This is why identifying these features is crucial, because they are the ones that you will spend your first batch of money on. So the reason why I like the Moscow model is because we can take it from this, which is a list with just something defining its priority as in accordance to Moscow, and then we can take that and we can slice it up to define our releases. And this is what we can take to our tech team, really. Instead of taking a mess backlog with a million items in it and determining priority, we just take this section and say, okay, in order to have an MVP and release it to the market, these are the features that have to be included in it. These are the features that we're gonna spend on. And this also allows you to determine the cost to some extent, because once you do this, once you have these features defined, the must-haves, and you know that you need those to release your MVP, you can start estimating the time and money needed to get these features out to the market, so you can start validating your technology or your product in the market itself. And this is one of the reasons why I like the slicing of this. Sorry, was someone saying something? I'm not sure. Okay. So I find that this slicing is useful, and it helps to give focus to the tech team as well, and not run a bunch of things by them. So this again, this has to take place for every platform that we do. So in our case, there's pharmacists and patients. We have to do one separate for pharmacists and one separate for patients, because they are separate platforms. We covered this already. So, so taking these tasks to the release, once you've identified what are the must-haves, what are these features that have to be included in my next release, either by developing a new product as an MVP or by releasing features as you go. It's important to understand the needs, so in this case of the patients and the pharmacists, in order to make sure that we are fulfilling those, and we have to take those and translate them to items that we can communicate to our dev team, to our marketing team, to our design team, to everyone. And this is where the concept of user story comes. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this. I know that there's different startups at different stages, but I wanted to cover it quickly. The concept of the user story and how to communicate with the tech team. Founders that come from a tech background will find this intuitive. Founders that don't come from a tech background might not have had the opportunity to organize the way they work with the tech team or how to communicate with the tech team. So usually to communicate these features, we use the concept of the user story, which is an agile software development tool that we use to showcase a description of a technical feature from the user's perspective. Why is it important? Because it allows us to determine who will do it, who will do what, and why they're doing it. This explains clearly to the tech team what we're trying to achieve, and it in terms of the business, and what it is that we want to do. So a few examples of a user story for the case of pharmatech would be, as a patient, I need to be able to create an account and log in, so I place orders on the app. This is just the main description of entering the request to the technical team. And from there, we can take these points and we can emphasize on them in order to explain the details of how this feature will work from a technical perspective. In the case of startups that have technical leads or involve technical leads, they will take care of implementing the rest. But the user story is a good method to communicate with the tech team. I know, again, this might be very basic for some of you, but just as a show of hands, who here does not use user stories to communicate with the tech team? Okay, so everyone uses them. That's good. Do we face issues communicating with the tech team? For the non-tech founders, do we face issues communicating with the tech team, getting our message through or our requirements, or do we feel like this is a straightforward activity? This is also something I'd like to ask. Ghassan, and I didn't know if your background is in tech or not personally.
No, I don't have a background in tech. I'm an industrial engineer. That's my background. But no, my founders عندهم tech backgrounds.
Okay, do you rely on them to handle the communication between you and between the business and the tech team?
Yes, of course. عارفين احنا two co-founders, واحد فيهم منيح بالproject planning والثاني tech. They both do well together.
Okay, Inta, you're the GM.
Operations side.
Operations. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, thank you. Caroline, Inta, from your side, do you suffer with communicating with the engineers? Do you feel like this process has been facilitated over time?
Yeah, myself, I feel, a bit challenged communicating directly with them. However, we have our CTO, Iyad, who does the communication with them, which is much better because he has, two backgrounds between business and tech. So it's much easier.
Yeah. Interesting how you see startups using different people for different roles. Sometimes the CEO or the GM plays the PM role. Sometimes the CTO plays the PM role. In bigger companies, these roles are more identified, but the biggest challenge is having to wear all these hats at different times, at different times and playing different roles. It's not always very easy. Okay, so since you guys know about user stories and you already use them, I'm not going to go into the details of how we do those. But as most of you know, when you build technical products, the next step after defining all these things and what you want to release is to go into actual release planning, which is a whole scope on its own. I cannot cover it in this session. It needs sessions but for itself, but I just wanted to mention things. So that's it for my session today. Thank you so much for listening. I know it was a bit short. But I'd love to hear back from you if anyone has anything to share on what we discussed today, or feels like there are other topics that we could have covered that they could have benefited from. I'd love to hear back from you, or any other feedback, of course. Just before we conclude, does anyone have any questions? Does anyone have anything they'd like to raise? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. If you ever have any questions or anything that I can assist you with, please feel free to reach out to me at any time.
Thank you so much, Rama, and thank you everyone for attending. And please don't forget to fill out the assessment form. And hopefully we see you soon, Rama, for the next masterclass.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.